Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed.
Welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into the situation surrounding the upcoming 80th anniversary of Victory Day in Russia. That's May 9th.
Right, and the big focus, of course, is the planned parade on Red Square in Moscow.
Exactly. And it's looking like a significant event diplomatically, too. Reports suggest over 20 world leaders are expected.
Yeah, the guest list is quite interesting. You've got the president of China planning to be there, along with leaders from Belarus, Serbia, Venezuela, even the prime minister of Slovakia.
So what's your take on this specific group, especially given, everything that's going on?
Well, it's definitely notable. The presence of leaders like China's, Serbia's, while many Western leaders likely won't attend, it sort of paints a picture, doesn't it?
Of the current alliances?
Precisely. It speaks volumes about the shifting geopolitical landscape.
Yeah.
China's attendance, for instance, clearly underscores its strategic alignment with Russia. It's more than just history. It's about present-day partnerships.
Okay, so alongside this big commemorative event, Russia announced something else, a ceasefire.
That's right. For the Victory Day period itself, so May 8th through the 11th.
And the stated reasons. Humanitarian considerations and wanting to find a peaceful resolution.
The timing is, well, strategic. Announcing it right before Victory Day.
What do you mean?
It could be seen as an attempt by Russia to, present itself as being open to peace, potentially influencing global views, or maybe even trying to create some division among Ukraine's supporters.
Even if the offer itself isn't seen as genuine by the other side.
Exactly. These kinds of gestures, often framed as humanitarian, usually have wider political aims baked in.
And Ukraine's response certainly reflected that skepticism. It was immediate, a definitive rejection.
Not really surprising, was it, given their past experiences and their consistent stance against unilateral ceasefires proposed by Russia, especially without any real conditions or international checks.
What's the main fear there?
The concern, based on what's happened before, is that any pause like this could just be used by Russia to, regroup, maybe move troops or supplies, rather than genuinely stopping the fighting.
The president of Ukraine actually called it a theatrical performance.
Strong words.
Yeah, and argued that the time frame, just 3 to 7 days, is nowhere near enough for any real negotiations.
And that's a fair point, isn't it? Meaningful talks need sustained effort, a stable environment. A few days, declared by one side, it's probably not enough to even set up proper channels, let alone tackle the big issues.
You can't build trust that quickly.
Absolutely not. It lacks the duration needed to generate any real momentum towards a lasting peace.
So Ukraine didn't just reject it. They came back with a counterproposal, apparently with U.S. backing.
Yes, a much longer one, a 30-day ceasefire.
And crucially, unconditional. What's the significance there?
Well, shifting from Russia's unilateral offer where they say they'll stop, regardless, to an unconditional one proposed by Ukraine. It implies a mutual stop is needed. No preconditions tied to specific Russian actions beforehand.
And the 30 days.
The longer period, 30 days, suggests they're looking for a window that could actually allow for some proper discussions, maybe some confidence-building steps. It's a push for something more substantial.
Then there was another layer added. The president of Ukraine also made a statement about safety. Specifically for those foreign leaders heading to the Moscow parade.
Right, saying Ukraine couldn't guarantee their safety.
How should we read that? It sounds like quite a direct warning.
It absolutely is. It brings the real-world risks of the conflict right into the diplomatic sphere. It underlines that, yes, the parade is in Moscow, but the wider war creates an inherently unstable situation.
So it puts pressure on those planning to attend.
Definitely. It forces them to weigh the symbolic value of being there against, well, potential security threats. It's a stark reminder of the ongoing hostilities.
This isn't the first time we've talked about ceasefires, of course. Looking back, there was that idea discussed back in March, I think, in Saudi Arabia.
Ah, yes, the 30-day one involving the U.S.
The key there was it depended on both sides stopping combat. Right.
Correct. And that attempt really highlights the core problem. Getting mutual agreement and having conditions you can actually verify. The need for both sides to act, that reciprocity, is crucial, but incredibly hard to achieve when there's so much mistrust.
We also saw that U.S. idea for a pause, specifically on strikes against energy infrastructure, A 30-day moratorium.
And initially, it seemed like both sides were sort of on board with that one.
But it fell apart pretty quickly, didn't it? Accusations flying back and forth about violations.
It really shows how fragile these things are. Even if you get an initial nod, without strong ways to monitor who's doing what, and with different ideas about what even counts as breaking the deal, it just collapses.
Deep mistrust makes sticking to agreements incredibly challenging.
And then, more recently, the Easter ceasefire attempt. Same story, really. Ended with both sides pointing fingers, accusing the other of breaking it.
So what's the pattern here? What does this tell us?
It just underscores the difficulty, doesn't it? There's this fundamental lack of trust, no solid mechanism to watch over and enforce these pauses. It suggests the underlying goals might be completely misaligned, and maybe there isn't a genuine will, or perhaps ability, to truly de-escalate.
And each failed attempt makes the next one harder.
Exactly. It just erodes trust even further.
Now, going back to that safety warning from the president of Ukraine about the parade attendees, how did Russia respond to that?
Well, one Russian official reportedly called the remarks a verbal provocation.
Just words, then, downplaying the concern.
Essentially, yes. That kind of language tends to escalate tensions, makes constructive dialogue even harder. Dismissing legitimate safety concerns as a provocation reinforces a more confrontational approach.
But then it seemed to go further. Another Russian official apparently made a much more direct threat.
You mean the statement that if any actual provocations happened, there was, and I quote, no guarantee Kiev will see May 10th.
Wow, that's a serious escalation in rhetoric.
Extremely serious. It moves way beyond diplomatic disagreements into the realm of direct threats. It really highlights the incredibly high stakes and just how tense things are around these Victory Day events.
Yet, despite all this back and forth, the official line from the Kremlin seems unchanged.
Yes, the spokesperson for the Russian president came out and said the Victory Day parade will go ahead exactly as planned.
Basically dismissing the safety concerns raised by Ukraine.
That's how it appears. It suggests a real determination to proceed with this highly symbolic event, regardless of the warnings or the ongoing conflict. You could see it as defiance, or simply a refusal to acknowledge the risks, perhaps for both domestic and international consumption. The priority is clearly the commemoration.
Okay, finally, let's touch on something slightly different, but maybe relevant. A recent comment attributed to the president of Russia himself.
The one about fighting urges.
Yes, admitting he constantly has to fight the urge to, quote, hit people. In the context of all these tense diplomatic exchanges, what can we possibly infer from a comment like that?
Well, it's a striking personal admission. Even if made in a different setting, you could interpret it as reflecting the immense pressure, maybe the underlying frustrations or emotions involved in these high-level, high-stakes interactions.
A glimpse into a certain mindset.
Perhaps. It hints at a potential undercurrent of aggression or frustration, which, could theoretically influence how decisions are made when things get really tense geopolitically. It adds another layer to consider.
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We are here to make things clear. New episodes every day.